Listen to this. This is the Gospel of John. You've heard it so many times, but again, just tune into what John is trying to convey to us. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to bear witness about the light, that all might believe through him. He was not the light, but came to bear witness about the light. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. Glory is of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Man, I could read those words over and over and over again, and there's so much richness in here that you can stop at every sentence and think a little bit deeper and understand a little bit closer of what happened in Christmas. And there's never enough, at least like in my own kind of life. Like I just want to read it over and over again and think about it because it's so, so beautiful. And what we talked about for the last few weeks, if you were here with us new, if you kind of coming visiting with your friends, we open the Bible every single time when we get together to understand more about who we are and how God kind of made this world, set it up so that we can live in ways that honor him. And he leads us to good life. And that's kind of the beauty of it, that he doesn't come to take away, he comes to give. And that's the point of this passage, that God comes to give. And we talked about receiving what he gives. We talked about receiving light, how we can see. When we know Christ, we get to truly see life for what it is. We get to see and understand even who we are. We get to truly see and understand who God is and what's the relationship like between us and him. And then last week we talked about receiving family, which is a weird thing because we all have a family. But what John is talking about, that there's the family we are longing for, where there's perfect acceptance, there's perfect harmony, perfect rest. And that's the invitation of God to come into this relationship, which is like a weird word, especially for the guys. It's like a relationship. But it's this closeness with God, where like we always long for someone to know us and to want us. You know what I mean? Like to know who I am, like everything about me. Not just the good things, not like when I dress up and stuff, but to know my thoughts and my brokenness, my issues, and to say, I still want you. And that's exactly what this is talking about, that God comes doing this. Like, I want you to be part of my family. It's so amazing. And today what I want to finish up with is talking about receiving life. Receiving life. In him was life, John says in verse 4, and the life was the light of men. No, Christmas is a strange holiday, frankly. There's not much Christ in Christmas anymore. That's why season's greetings predominantly now. I just saw this rant by some kind of Sikh, like one of the people that are coming from India with their religion and stuff like that. And he was like, no, it should be Christmas, because it's about Christ who came. And I'm like, right on, keep on saying that. And he's like, I'm not a Christian, but it's about Christmas. That's why we even have this time. And I'm like, amen. Brother, it's good. That's what this is about. And yet, at the same time, so much of our culture just pushes Christ away and settles for trinkets and toys that are tomorrow's garage sale items. You know what I mean? Like we just get so excited about the dazzle and drizzle and whatever else, and then in a few months, gosh, sometimes in a couple days, it's like, it was all right. It was all right. The turkey was good, but it's losing its meaning, which is so, so sad. But it's one of the most significant events in history. One of my friends asked me on Sunday, Easter or Christmas, which one's more important? And I'm like, man, you can't have Easter without Christmas. But Easter is when everything comes together, when the coming baby actually does what the baby came to do, and that is to die for us. But Christmas is huge because it leads to Easter. And what John reminds us of right here, as we think of Christmas, is that it's precisely because we need Christ to come that he comes. He doesn't come because he's like, oh, I'm just going to come. I've never had swaddling clothes and I've never in a manger. Let's see how it is. He comes because we need him. Everything is made and sustained by him. He made this argument right from the beginning. Even when you think about it in philosophical terms or in cosmological terms, whatever terms, you always go back. You cannot go infinitely back. There is a beginning point. And John says that in the beginning was the Word, the uncreated. Everything depends on him. Everything draws from him. And so we have life today. Right? To say to somebody, hey, receive life. He's like, wait a second, I have a life. Like we all have a life. Though sometimes we say, oh, you get a life, Stop playing games on your phone, get a life. There's so much more to it. What do you say? No? Keep on playing games? Oh, I wasn't even thinking about you, but if you're playing games, sometimes it's all right, I guess. What are you playing? Okay. What's your favorite game? Wow, so evasive. We all have a life. I'm not against games, all right? Like my boys play games sometimes. Troy, don't you play games? Forza Horizon 4, baby, yeah. And some kind of Star Wars stuff. Oh, thank you, yes. But here's the thing. Statistically speaking, how long are you going to live? What's the stats? 80 and 90, that's optimistic. It's about 78.6. Close enough. Like, we don't think about it, right? But the reality is this life is not forever, and it's for a reason. Because the life we have was given to us so that we would honor God with it. Like at the very beginning, when God creates humanity, he makes them in his image. Which means, images show, they image, they point forward to somebody else. Like when you draw a picture of a person, that's an image of a person. It's supposed to reflect something about this person. And so when God creates us, John says at the very beginning, he does that. He makes us so that we would reflect him. And the reality is that we're not doing it. Because God says, be holy as I am holy. And I'm like, man, we're not. I'm not. I don't think any one of you would say, I'm just like God, just in my moral character. But even though we would want to be like God, like we find ourselves this weird principle that keeps on taking us away from the very things we desire. Like how often you look back at the things you have done or the places you've been and you say to yourself, I wish I never. Like isn't that like a reoccurring theme? Like I wish I could go back and change things in my life. Like this is our reality. Our will is bent towards defiance of God. And that's why the life we have carries with itself death. 78.6. But God comes because that's the case, and he comes to restore life. We still have to bear the consequences of our defiance against him in this physical death, but the greater problem is our spiritual death, where we are separated from the very one who sustains our lives, who desires for us to live in closeness and harmony with him, but we don't even think about it very often. Sometimes people ask me, it's like, what if I sinned once? Would God still judge me? Which is an interesting question because in principle I have to say yes, but at the same time, my question will be, show me a person who have sinned once. Right? Because surely it's not you. Like it's not me, but it's not you. It's nobody. See, the problem is not our deeds that we do. No, we do this or say this or think that. The problem is our disposition or our natural bent. Our natural bent is to dethrone God as the one who's supposed to guide and lead and be the Lord over me and put myself in it. And so because of that disposition, everything we do is colored by a rebellion against God. But you see, God doesn't come to judge. He comes because we're already in trouble, because we already need somebody to come and rescue us from this weird place where we're made by God and yet stand in opposition to Him. It's Christmas. That's what Christmas is. Christmas is that His world needed Him to come and to die. Because for sin, someone has to die. Question. Do you have to go pee? You got to hold for 5 minutes. You can try. That's okay. Somebody spilled some juice over here. Just sit down there and it's like as if it never happened. Awesome. We'll edit that out maybe. Here's why a baby came. Like receiving life. Here's why a baby, listen to this. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us, verse 14, and we have seen His glory. Glory is of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. People get so up in arms about, like, why does God have to judge? He has to judge because He's holy and perfect and stands in opposition to sin. But because of that, He becomes flesh, and we can see grace and truth coming from Him. He comes because He doesn't want us to face the consequences, eternal ones of our life, of our sin. We don't want to think about it. We don't want to think about our guilt. But that's what Christmas says. Christmas says, you are already, but I'm coming to give you life. You have this life now in which we live. But this carrying of death in it is a problem. And so Christmas happened because it needed to happen. Because for sin, someone had to die. Receiving life. Receiving life. So much more than just receiving gifts. Receiving life from God. We all need it. So two encouragements, and I'm done. If you are in Christ, you're like, this life is forever. That's the beautiful thing. You didn't do anything to deserve it. You didn't do anything to get it. It completely depends on the will and the power of God to not only give you that life, but to keep you close to Himself. That's the most freeing thing ever, because suddenly you're freed not to obey rules in order to be kept by God, but now you're free to live out who you are in God. It's a very different thing. In one of them, you have to do things in order to appease so that hopefully God will keep you, right? Because He's not going to look at you like, oh, what are you doing? Like, get away from me. No, He knows all those things that will happen. That's why He comes and He dies for them, and now He frees you to simply to desire to live for Him. And the Spirit that comes to live in you, the moment you say, yes, I need Christ to stand in my place, He is the one who teaches you now and guides you now and leads you now and woos you now and draws you now and makes you more and more desiring of God's image coming out through your life. He's just working internally in you. He not only saved you, He's keeping you. The life He gave you, He's bent on keeping it, and who's stronger than Him? That's encouraging. Christmas is encouraging because it says God did it all. You did not ask for this baby to be born, but He was born because you needed Him to be born. You did not ask for this baby to grow up and die for you, but He died for you because you needed Him to die for you. And He rose from the dead to show the indestructible power of life that He holds. Now, you know this song, "Oh Come Let Us Adore Him"? I would sing it for you, but you guys probably would be like, oh. But that's what we need to do. Like, just you're Christians, let's adore Him. Like, there's joy in knowing Christ. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh my, I'm a Christian. No, it's like, I can't believe He saved me. Like, let's live it out. Let's remember that the more you dwell on what He did for you, the more of thanksgiving flows from your life, the more you desire to walk close with Him, the more you walk in His ways, the more you adore Him. It's just this unending circle of seeing Him, lifting your eyes up and remembering He came for me. He came for me. He's holding me. He's got me. That's encouraging. That's Christmas. And His encouragement number 2, to all who did receive Him. How many? All. They talk about Christianity being exclusive. This is the most inclusive invitation ever. To all who did receive him, who believe in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who are born of the will of God. That's the second birth. That's the encouragement that there is, as Jesus says, this being born again, receiving life anew. Not simply this my physical life, but the life meaning connection with him, the harmony for which we are made. You have life now, but the life you carries death. But Christ comes to defeat that so that you could live and walk with him forever, that your defiance will be taken care of. Christmas is about receiving life. This baby came for me. And that leads to rejoicing in that life. Two encouragements. Receiving life, oh what joy, and then walking in it and rejoicing. Don't miss Christmas. And Merry Christmas to you guys. Father, thank you so much.